Closed captioning is brought to you by Insect Defend Patch. Deep free protection from biting insects.
A plastic worm rigged on a worm hook is probably one of the best ways to catch largemouth bass, whether you're fishing around weeds in open water that are thick or casting along the shore. And what I'm holding up here in my right hand is a 6-inch plastic worm. It just has a straight tail. There's no action tail or ribbon tail. And it's rigged with a 2/0, or what is called a 2/0 worm hook. You can see that at the top. I've only put the hook in about a 1/4 inch. Then it comes back out and back into the worm, and then it's totally weedless. This is called a Texas rig. Now it's very important that the worm hangs perfectly vertical. If you hold it in a vertical position, no bends. That way you'll get a natural action. Now if you're using a larger plastic, you'll want to use a larger hook. This one that I'm using here is a 5/0 or 5/0 hook, and you can see that it has a custom bend. So here you'd put the hook into the worm, only about a little over a 1/4 inch, and then it has this step that prevents the worm from being pulled back if a smaller bass grabs it. Three hook sets. Hopefully that did it.
Is it coming up?
You got him on top. He's actually pulling me in towards shore.
Oh, I hope it's a giant.
Well, look, I'm going. I can't believe how well he's towing me. Haven't seen him yet.
Maybe it's one of those big 7-8 pounders.
I don't know. He's got good weight to him, but it's hard to say. When they got their mouths open, oh yeah, good bass. Okay. Beautiful largemouth. He's over 5. You got to tell me. You got to tell me how big he is, because you've seen more fish in here. Let me just.
Oh, he's chunky.
5?
Woo.
He's
That's
right?
a solid 5.
Good fish. Thick
Look
fish.
at that.
Perfect. You had to set the hook 2-3 times because of the 10 pound. If we're using flipping sticks, no problem.
No
One
problem.
good hook set. You know, it's so nice to use just a single hook with plastics because it's actually quite easy to get the hooks out of the fish. And I'm going to use the net. I know you guys, some of you guys are thinking, you know, you don't really need a net for the largemouth, but you know what? As a live release tool, I think it's great. You can have your hands in the water, and the water is okay, but it's a little cool here. See, because this is a basket net and it's got a flat bottom, the fish isn't curved, and he's almost ready to go. I'm just going to head him out. Look how thick a shoulders he's got. I'm going to try to hold his head up, but he'll probably take off. Can you see how thick he is? That is a thick fish. I'm going to fix that worm again because it's so important. I can't stress enough when you're using, especially worms and finesse fishing, to make sure that they hang straight. So what I'll do, just for the sake, for those of you that maybe haven't used plastic worms before, I'm going to explain some things. I'm going to take the hook right out of it, even though it's not really good to pass the hook several times through a fish. First of all, this is a worm hook. So if you're going to fish plastic worms, you should really be using a plastic worm hook. Now the reason it's a plastic worm hook, you can see that it's got a pretty big bend and it's really big. So this is actually a 3/0 hook. Now you'll also notice that the knot that I've tied has a loop on it. So that allows the worm to swim. When you pull it and you give it slack line, it actually goes from side to side. So I didn't do a tight knot, okay? That's kind of like a surgeon's loop that I've used on there. And what I have about a 2 feet long leader of 20-pound test fluorocarbon. And then I have my Suffix 832 braid, and it happens to be 10-pound test. The line diameter of 4-pound test. That's why you see me set the hook 2-3 times sometimes. Now the reason I've got 20-pound is because when you're fishing some of the timber in here, and you do get a big bass on like that, it can take you under the logs just like the one that I had, and I was able to pull it out. Also, there are pike in here. And with the 20-pound, you've got a little bit better chance of landing a pike than without using a leader or using a lighter leader. So here's my worm. You'll see that these TriggerX, the way they come, the tail end is narrow. It comes to a point. the head or the front of the worm has a flat area. So that's the area that we want to put the worm in. So I'm going to place the hook in the center of the worm. I'm going to go in about a 1/2 inch. Okay? So that's about a 1/2 inch. I'm going to take the whole hook and I'm going to pass it through. You'll notice the knot is going inside until that little corner of the hook comes out. Literally, that's where I want the hook inside the worm so that it's straight. So I'll put it back here. I'll put it in the worm and I'll make sure that it's nice and comfortable. And that's pretty well the plastic worm put on straight.
Canadian Sport Fishing, brought to you in part by Suffix, the world's most hardcore fishing line. Yamaha Outboards, reliability starts here. Sail, the outdoors superstore. Lucky Strike, all you need is a Lucky Strike.
Okay, let me just drop it in the water and you'll see how fast it actually sinks pretty good. You see when I twitch it, it really has a tantalizing action, almost like a lifelike action. Now, you know, I'm not fishing it vertically, but this is just to show you that it's got a pretty fast sink rate without adding any weight to it. And it looks very natural, and a largemouth, well, even a 1 pound largemouth can come by and just inhale that plastic worm. So when you're buying the worms, especially the TriggerX, make sure that they're a slow dropping worm, because that means that they're a worm like this and they work really well. Not just for bass, but you can also get walleye and other species of fish on them. Okay, let's get back on the shore.